She's an award-winning coach. She is an author several times over.
I went through a particularly difficult season in 2004 and 5, through something really hard. You wonder abdominal neuralgia and had to have brain surgery and was in extreme pain for a long time. After you go through something really hard, you wonder who you really are now because it has changed you. Our value and our identity has to come from our relationship with God, who we are as His children and how we are loved unconditionally. I got in touch with some things in me where I felt like if I didn't perform well, that I didn't please him and that I wasn't as loved. My worth is not determined by my performance. We are able to just sit together in the mornings with our coffee and just sit with the Lord together, and we start out with our gratitudes. What are we grateful for? So this kind of practice in the morning helps you to get in touch with that. I want to help people live in this place of Emmanuel connection. Emmanuel is God with us.
Even believers are doubting their faith. They're beginning to wonder, is this even really real? I love God, but I have questions. I love God, but I have some doubts. Well, welcome in everyone to this very special episode of the Thrive Show. I am so excited to bring to you today one of my favorite people on the planet. Her name is Terri Sullivant. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her in just a moment. But if this is your first time here, welcome in. My name is Durana, Lady J. Ellison, and we are committed here at the Thrive Show to helping leaders, entrepreneurs, visionaries, dreamers, just like you, thrive in life and in business while keeping God first. So let's not waste any more time. I met Terri, gosh, it was years ago through our mutual coach and friend, Dan Miller of 48 Days to Work That You Love. And ever since then, Terri and I have been connected. Listen, she's an award-winning coach. She is an author several times over, and she's so experienced in her field. Terri, welcome into the Thrive Show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you. I remember that day that we met at Dan's. There was an event at his barn, and I just remember meeting you, and you gave me an invitation to your mastermind, and I've been in your mastermind a long time now.
Have. In fact, you were one of the original members of the mastermind.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. So talk to us a little bit where you are now. Kind of tell the people a little bit about yourself and how you got started into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Well, my husband and I have been in ministry since the Jesus People days. We were Jesus people on our campus, and we still are. We're just old Jesus people.
Right.
So, so we've been in ministry all of our years. But I went through a particularly difficult season in 2004 and 5, where I had a condition called trigeminal neuralgia and had to have brain surgery and was in extreme pain for a long time. And I found Dan Miller kind of as I was coming out of that and needing to re-up on life and figure out, what does life look like now that I've been through all this. I think a lot of people feel that after you go through something really hard, you wonder who you really are now because it has changed you.
Yeah.
And it does change you, and it changes you for the better in many ways if you let it. So, and Dan was really helpful in helping me think through that and have a positive mindset with that. So I became a coach with his help, and that was part of my re-upping on life and helping others to do the same with some of the new things that I gained through the suffering that I went through.
Wow. Oh, so talk to me a little bit about, I like that statement you just made about sometimes we attach our identity
Mhm.
so close to what we do or what we used to do. What was that like for you when you got the diagnosis and you weren't able to do what you used to do, and then how you kind of recovered from that?
Well, I really got in touch with some performance mentality that I had, that you feel when you can perform well,
Mm.
then you take, not even necessarily credit, but you find value in that in a way that is, temporary. Sometimes we're only going to be able to do certain things for a certain amount of time in our life. Our value and our identity has to come from our relationship with God and who we are as His children and how we are loved unconditionally. And I got in touch with some things in me where I felt like if I didn't perform well, that I didn't please Him. and that
Mhm.
I wasn't as loved. And
Mhm.
it really did, help. And I was able to get much more free in my relationship with him, where I was super honest and I got mad at him and told him everything that I felt and found him just so much in love with me still. And so holding me close in the middle of those times. And it just gave me such a security deep inside that I carry with me ever after that.
Wow.
My worth is not determined by my performance.
I hope everybody listening heard that and even wrote it down, because the kind of people that listen to the Thrive Show are achievers, are doers, action takers. And so many times we wrap our worth in what we do and what we are able to check off of a list, or how we're able to perform in helping somebody else. But talk to the person today, Terri, who is really struggling to find that soul rest. They're asked, what are your hobbies? They say, well, I really don't have any because I just love my work so much. I just love my job. And so my job brings me all the nourishment and fulfillment I need. Talk to that high achiever who is going and doing so much that she barely has time to let her soul catch up with her.
I think I will share a scripture about that because it's one of the key scriptures that I feel my husband and I are ministering to other people. And it's in Hebrews 4, 9 through 11. So then there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works, as God did from his. Let us therefore strive to enter that rest, so that no one may fall by the same sort of disobedience. So striving to enter his rest is super important, because if we only strive to do our best, meaning performance, we can miss entering his rest. And
Mm.
entering his rest is the key to being able to actually perform well long term. It's a rhythm of being able to enter into a rest and a peace inside yourself that you carry around. You carry the Sabbath rest within you. And it keeps you from a kind of striving that leads you into disobedience, according to the scriptures.
Mm.
So that scripture has always been a sort of a paradox to me, but I feel like I understand it now.
Wow. I love how you talked about rhythms of rest. What are some of the things that you do, or the things that you suggest leaders do to find that rest? And of course, it looks different for everybody, but what are
Mhm.
some of the things that you do to, because I know you love your work as a leader, as a coach.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you do to help your soul catch up with you so that you're not always working?
Oh, yeah. So that's a significant part of what my coaching is, actually. I'm switching now to a manual coaching, which is helping people to abide in Him and live in that rest. And so that you have practices that you do that become habits, that become rhythms of life that cause you to live in rest. So sitting with God is basically just taking the time to push everything away. My husband and I do this together now that we don't have 5 kids running around the house all the time. We are able to just sit together in the mornings with our coffee and just sit with the Lord together. And we start out with our gratitudes. What are we grateful for? First, we actually do a little bit of deep breathing just to clear the space. And then we share our gratitudes as our first thoughts of the morning. And what are we grateful for today or yesterday or whatever comes? And just kind of camping out on that first. And scripture says we enter his gates with thanksgiving. So it's the password into his presence. Thanksgiving is that password. And then you come into his courts with praise. So it leads you into being able to experience his presence, which is where the rest is. He's the Prince of Peace. He lives inside of us, but we can go out through our day without being in touch with that. So this kind of practice in the morning helps you to get in touch with that. And we
Mm.
also created an app called the Hearing Heart.
Ooh,
And
tell me.
yeah, so it's ready to come out. It's in the app stores getting approved. Basically doing what I just described. You begin taking some deep breaths and Thanksgiving, allowing yourself to enter into some Thanksgiving, and then looking into the face of God. What is the face of God that you see today? So it's all about just beholding who he is, taking the time to acknowledge him. And it goes through all different faces of God, meditations, and then it's a statement of our identity that comes out of understanding who God is and who God is within us.
So you said the name of the app is what?
The hearing heart.
Hearing Heart. Okay. Is that going to be available on Android and iPhone, or is it just one or the other?
Everything.
And
It'll
every
be everything when they get it all, it's the app stores that are sorting that out right now. It's all created.
excellent. And so it's like that prayer and meditation type of experience that will help busy high achievers and leaders to slow down.
Exactly. If you take those few minutes in the morning, you can actually do it in the car. My kids are busy and they're all doing it in the car as they take their kids to school, and
Mhm.
their voices are all on it. So our family and our kids and our grandkids' voices are on that along with ours. So
Fantastic.
it's really fun that we did that together. And just as a way that we begin our days. And we wanted to teach them too. And we want to teach all the people that we walk with how to live in these rhythms of rest.
So with us talking about, and it's so funny, I love how we're just having a conversation because God is in the middle of all of it, because who know
Yeah.
we would be talking about these rhythms of rest. I'm a firm believer that our world rather is bloated with information, Terry, but
Mhm.
we are starved for wisdom in so many ways. What are some of the ways that or what do you say to a client that you're coaching who feels like she has to do all the things? Maybe she's at the starting line of her business, or maybe she's at that intermediate part where she feels like she has to say yes to all the things so that she
Mhm.
can get the footing and the growth in her business. How long,
Mhm.
what would you tell her, number one? And then number two, well, let's just stay there. I'll just do one question at a time. What would you
Okay.
feeling like she has to do all the things?
Well, definitely have worked with people that are doing that. And just created an exercise that looks like a scales. And you were talking about wisdom. And it looks like an old-fashioned scales with the pans that go up and down according to the weight. And I have people assign a weight to everything in their life that they need to do, that they believe they need to do. How much does that weigh? Does that weigh 1 pound? Does that weigh half a pound? Does it weigh 10 pounds? And I give them a scale of how many pounds we're going to talk about. We give that assignment of weight to each one and figure out which ones are most important and which ones can wait. Because you got to go with the weight. What has the most weight? And then you can focus on those things. And then in accordance of how much the other things weigh in importance, then you address those in that order.
I love that model. And isn't it interesting how sometimes the things that have the least amount of weight make the most noise,
They do.
don't
They do.
they?
They're the glitter that gets your attention.
Exactly. I was
Mhm.
listening to Pastor Craig Groeschel the other day, and he was talking about three habits great leaders avoid. And one of the habits was the habit of doing too much. And so he talked about grouping things into four tiers, which reminded me of the weight that you so beautifully described. He said tier one is the stuff that's absolutely mission critical. Tier two is the stuff that's very important and strategic. Tier three is it's meaningful, it's nice to do, but it's not vital. And then
Mhm.
finally, tier four is the stuff that's externally initiated and lower priority, right? Somebody else is asking you to do X, Y, Z. And one of the things he talks about is eliminate as much stuff out of tier three and four as you can. Is your model somewhat similar to that with the weights?
Yeah, that might be stuff that you don't need to do at all, or you can delegate it or somehow, not have to do that. So,
Mhm.
yeah. But I just created that in the middle of a coaching session one day. This person, I just felt an impression. I just believe God gives you these kind of intuitions, and it's his wisdom that they need, and he gives you that wisdom. And it so helped her that I just began to use it with lots of people.
Love that. So let's pivot here for just a moment and talk to us about the wisdom gained through all these years of entrepreneurship and the thing that keeps you going. So if someone is at their starting line and they're saying, Terri, you've been doing this a long time. What is your why that keeps you getting up every morning, doing the hard grind that we both know entrepreneurship is?
Well, I would say that I've always been a person who loves to mine the treasure in others. I believe that's a coach thing, that's what we do as coaches, that we help people mine that treasure. It's not just out there for you to grab, you have to dig for it. You have to go search for it. And so that's been a theme for me that I love doing that. I just love doing that. I loved it as a mom, I've loved it as a pastor, I've loved it as a coach. So that love of mining the treasure in others, and having done it in my own life is what keeps me going in that way. But also my love for helping to be a shepherd of God's people. I want to help people live in this place of Emmanuel connection. Emmanuel is God with us. And to live with the awareness and the experience of Him moment by moment, day day in and day out, so that we realize He's always with us and we don't have to fear. We don't have to lose our peace. That scripture in John 15:5 and 6, or 4 and 5, it talks about this, the secret to success from God's perspective. He said, if you abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And he goes on to say, you will bear fruit that remains. So there's a ton of success formulas out there, but this is one the Bible teaches. And bearing fruit that remains is the goal to me for us as Christians. So I'm really feeling that motivation as I'm moving into this next season of coaching, and that it will be a follow-up to our retreats that my husband and I do.
Beautiful. Have you ever been in a situation with a coaching client, as I'm sure all of us who have been coaches over 10 years have? Have you ever been in a situation with a coaching client where you had a heart to mine the gold in them, but maybe after the first or second session, you were like, okay, God, you can take this one back to the factory. I don't
Mhm.
want I don't want to mine the gold in this one because this is a hard case. Talk about some hard cases that you've had, and what did you do? How did you get through it, or did you pass it on, or did you just say, this is not for me?
Well, I think that I try to eliminate this is not for me ones up front, where I always have a consultation where we're, getting to know each other, and they're getting a taste from my coaching. I'm getting a feel for who they are. And I don't coach anybody that I don't have a consultation with. It's not just fill out a form and you can coach with me, because it's a very personal thing. There are people that's have really wanted to do it, but then when you get into it, they have some big obstacles under the surface. It's like the iceberg under the
Mm.
surface is big. You might see this sticking out, but there's a big thing underneath it.
So
And
true.
so when I hit that, I have tools that I use if they want to go there. Most of the people that I coach are Christians, but also just look into it as limiting beliefs. What are the limiting beliefs here? And I have a whole exercise on how to walk out of a limiting belief. Because when you're hitting that, there's a stronghold, which is really something that's built out of limiting beliefs. It's lies. It's a house made of lies inside of you. And so if you want to go there, I'll go there with you. And I have a lot of different ways of doing that. And some people want to, and it might take a little bit of time, and I don't mind. I don't mind taking the time to do that. There are some people that I really felt like it was so severe, there was so much trauma there, that they needed to do some therapy. They needed to do some counseling. I do a measure of that. I do Emmanuel counseling as well as coaching, but some people just really need to do a stint of that and then they come back to me. So that's my thoughts about that.
I think that's a healthy answer, especially with the understanding that counseling and therapy is much more about looking back, all the issues that happened back when, as opposed to coaching is about moving forward. How are we going to move forward? In fact, I was listening to I was listening to somebody this morning. Oh, it was Michael Hyatt and Megan Hyatt Miller were interviewing Rich Litvin. You would love that episode, Friend Show. And they were talking about how in these next few years, most leaders are not going to go anywhere, without, to big events or whatever, without their coaches, or at least what their coaches have put into them. And the whole principle or philosophy of coaching being the new leadership. So I love how you have approached that and how you're approaching it. Let's pivot for a second and talk about your latest book. Talk about the book and really what inspired you to write it.
Well, it's called The Divine Invitation, and it was like a once in a lifetime dream that I had, an experience that came out of questions that I was asking God. I was asking him, what does it look like to be fully me with Jesus in me, and me as a woman and as a woman leader. So I was asking God all those questions, and so he gives me this dream that's like a picture of what it looks like to be fully alive as a human being with Christ in us. And it was about the process that he goes through to gracefully impart the grace to change and to grow up in all the character qualities of Christ and of healthy human beings. And some of it's healthy women, things that pertain to women. So there were like, I think 30, 28 or 30, I can't remember, character qualities. And each one in the dream was represented by a woman, probably angel, but she was a woman in white that gave me a gift. And the gift, she just pressed it into my chest. And I immediately just took out something and gave it to her to take away. And it was just the picture of how graciously God initiates a dance with us where he gives us gifts one at a time, and we get to process them and we get to change into his character. And the final picture was a woman who was so powerful and so full of love. She just radiated light that you could barely look at her. She was scary. And her name was Fully Alive.
Fully alive.
And she was composite. She was all of those other character qualities added together into one. And so the book is all about that. It's about I name all the character qualities and have stories of how this has been worked in my life or other people's lives, because we learn from stories and can appropriate them for ourselves. So do it in a retreat setting often to allow people to experience. It's a book that's meant to be experienced.
Yes, I like that. A book that's meant to be experienced. And I think today, books like yours are so needed, especially Terry, because we're living in a time where people are having a lot of questions about God. Even
Mm.
believers are doubting their faith. They're beginning to wonder, is this even really real? I love God, but I have questions. I love God, but I have some doubts. And sometimes those doubts aren't necessarily about God. It's about how God's people have treated people who have gotten hurt. So,
Yes. Mhm.
talk to me a little bit about how you deal with the person who is saying, "Hey, I love God. I'm getting into this thing. I may not be there all the way, but I still have some doubts. Help me get through this."
Validate their questions and their pain first
Yeah.
and foremost. It's real because wherever there's human beings and wherever there's an enemy, there's going to be pain. And that's just part of who we are. It gets weird when it gets God's face put on it, because it's not God that's hurting us. It's people and circumstances that are hurting us. So, but first and foremost, validate their concerns and their pain. And no questions are illegal. We can bring all of our questions to God. We can bring all of our feelings to God and be 100% honest with him. He already knows what's in there. He's not going to freak out or reject you if you bring it all to him. So we help people all the time to walk through this kind of thing. And we're actually doing a conference entitled Overcoming Church Hurt in April in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. Because it's such a big topic right now. There's been a lot of exposure, which is the hand of God, making sure that the darkness doesn't get a place in his people. And so a lot of hurt is coming out too. So this conference is about that and how we become a family that heals.
Beautiful. And how can people get more information about your conference?
It's lifemodelworks.org.
Lifemodelworks.org. We'll include that in the link below, everybody, so that you can go to it and check it out if you'd like.
And look
Life,
at the events on there. The event is Transform 2025, and
perfect.
I will be ministering at the conference.
Fantastic. All right. So as we bring this in for a landing, Terry, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for your heart. I felt the sincerity. I always feel the sincerity of your heart whenever you share. But as we bring this in for a landing, give us 3 practical tips and 3 practical things for people to do if they want to have that divine invitation, if they want to live a life of success and significance. So let's start with 3 practical tips, just fast.
Start every day with quieting, which is breathing, mostly deep breathing, sitting still, and offering gratitude to God. Then waiting for his voice and believing that you have the mind of Christ and that he is there to communicate his thoughts to you, which help you to connect to his presence. And then stay connected through the day and talk to other people about that, about what God is showing you, so that they get to have the benefit of what's going on with you and invite them to tell their stories.
Yes.
Because I
Beautiful.
think there's three parts of the Emmanuel rhythm. That first you enter his rest, then you engage with Emmanuel, and then you express your new story. So those are three things that I'm thinking of.
Fantastic. So I heard start by offering gratitude to God, stay
Mhm.
connected throughout the day. And number three, make sure you're talking to others about your experience
Yeah.
as in growing as well. Okay. One or two things that you want to leave with entrepreneurs, leaders who are committed to keeping God first. What would you tell them in this new season?
Well, keeping God first is what we've just talked about, how we enter his rest and we stay there. So I think having your own rhythms in your busy day where you're doing this is super important. And as you go about your work, checking in with God when you have a moment, so that as you're doing your work, as you're enjoying your work, that you also check in with God. He's right there with you, and it helps you be mindful of his presence.
So beautiful. Terri, thank you so much. What a wealth of wisdom. What a refreshing treat to be able to talk to you like this morning. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for the genuine love that came across this screen today. Listen, I want to encourage everyone watching to make sure you connect with Terri. She is the real deal. She and her husband as well. And I want to encourage you, if you're the type of leader who's watching and maybe you are getting your success and your significance off of how much you check off of your to-do list, or maybe you just got so much going on that you need help finding rhythms of rest for your soul. I really want to encourage you to check out the conference Terri is having, as well as her website, so that you can get more information. Terri, give us the ways people can get in touch with you, your website, and any other social media you'd like them to have.
Radiusministries.org is our website. We're for ministry and coaching. And you can go there, and I have all my social media links down there. Also, lifemodelworks.org is where you get the information about the conference and some of the practices that we do.
Beautiful. I've got to say this. I failed to say this in the beginning, but I am so proud to call Terri a Lady J certified coach as well. She has several certifications, but I'm just honored that she's on my team as well as a certified coach, has been through all the training and helps her clients get real results. So Terri, thank you so much. Any parting words before we go that you want to leave the listeners?
I just really love you, Lady J, and I'm glad that you're in my life. You were my gratitude this morning. And I just want to encourage all of you out there to stay connected to her because she's got a bright light. She's a serious entrepreneur, but she always keeps God first. And it touches me deeply to be a part of that mastermind. And I just certain moments, there's just this wow experience with God that we all have together, and you let everybody go there. You are just not all business. You're really the real deal, keeping Jesus first. So that's what I'm thinking.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, this has been so rich. Everybody, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the podcast. Thank you for watching. Remember this, where God guides, God provides, and where God directs, God protects. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.